Hello, good evening and welcome to Business Live. Coming up in this edition, energy strategist Dr. Yusuf Suleiman urges government to implement a financial backup to address shortage of LPG to ensure consistent electricity supply.
We need to have maybe a backup, a financial backup available so that when there's any shortfall in gas supply coming from a trouble, then we should be able to source something externally from, probably from Nigeria.
Ghana Association of Savings and Loans Companies urges members to diversify sources of funding as directed by the Bank of Ghana to reduce costs of interest rates and non-performing loans in their books.
If you diversify, there are a number of institutions who have gotten investors from outside the country. They will be giving you an interest rate which is lower, but your hedging cost is so expensive.
Plus, Dean of UPSA Law School, Professor Kofi Abuchi, pushes for review of some stability agreement with firms operating in the extractive sector.
The best option that you may have could be a negotiated case. A negotiated case of probably trying to bring those companies back to the table and see if they would happily open up and allow some redesign of things. Look, Botswana just did it.
We've got details of these and many others coming your way, all in a moment. Please stay. Always a pleasure to have you on. I am Pius Kojo Baka. Let's now settle for the details. And the Bank of Ghana has signaled its intention to still go ahead with the targeted support for the bulk oil distribution companies to support fuel imports. Well, this is despite proposals from the International Monetary Fund that the central bank should take steps to suspend the program. George Yafe has the rest of the story.
Bank of Ghana's decision to still press ahead with this program came up during one of those engagements between the central bank and these bulk distributors of petroleum products. This is, however, not to say that the central bank has totally rejected the IMF's proposal to take steps to halt this targeted dollar support program. The IMF had maintained that it doesn't help in allowing the forces of demand and supply determine the exchange rate, as it sees the Bank of Ghana's action as a deliberate regulatory intervention to control the exchange rate. However, persons close to the Bank of Ghana had argued that the decision to go ahead this program should be seen as a temporary measure, whilst it looks ahead to see how it will be feasible to totally suspend the program. The uncertainty about the future of this dollar support program for the bulk oil distributors brought some pressure on the Ghana cedi some 2 weeks ago. Some players have told Your Business that the decision to continue this program, at least for now, may help to consolidate the Ghana cedi's gains against the US dollar and stabilize the rates going forward. It could also go a long way to possibly keep fuel prices at the pumps unchanged from the 16th of this month.
All right, so let's get onto Zoom and speak with the Chief Executive of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, Dr. Kweku Ofori, to share his perspective with us on this issue. Grateful, sir, you could join me on Business Live. I'd want to, first off, pick your initial reaction to the decision by the Bank of Ghana to go ahead with its dollar support, despite proposals from the IMF to halt the program.
Thank you. I think good evening to your listeners and then also the host. I think the decision by the central bank to take this move is one that is commendable. Many a times, I think we get some element of misinformation or miscommunication around some of these policy directives by the central bank. But what people fail to realize is its social impact and overall benefit in how such policies help the central bank as a key manager of inflation and other microeconomic indicators of the country.
I see.
The bit about the miscommunication is about the false impression that is being created out there that they give the BDCs the cheap dollars and that they are creating different market rates. It's not the case. The central bank, based on their projections and like any commodity traders that they engage in, forward trading. It's just that it assures the BDCs or the counterparties that at this point time, T or in 2 weeks' time, we have this quantum of forex available for you and it's going to be traded at this rate. There are times that the BDCs who lock in those products will go and then pay for an amount that maybe the current market is even lower than that rate. So that, I think, has also not been fair to the central bank, and that is why maybe the IMF and other communicators around such policies may think that they are creating a different scenarios or different markets for different segments of the economy. But I think if there is anything to say to the central bank, is that of commendable, a bold initiative that distinguishes Ghana from other countries that experience fuel shortages during the critical periods of our economy.
Great, you've clarified that, but what impact do you think this would have on the supply of petroleum products and, of course, prices, as well as the stability of the cedi?
Supply of petroleum products has never been in doubt in terms of availability of products, and then also the currency to back it. With such initiatives, it gives confidence to the international IOTCs that we deal with them, the international oil trading companies that we deal with them. And then also it gives us the opportunity to be able to plan and then also to negotiate better, because irrespective of what, you know that there is a certain amount of forex availability that you are guaranteed and assured of. So in terms of structuring your payment terms of either your bank or the IOTCs that have given you open credit, you know that when you go to the auctions and you are even guaranteed $2 or $3 million in every 2-week period, you can use this to structure and agree payment terms with these partners. The positive side of this is that it also will reduce the element of panic that under normal circumstances, most BDCs would have rushed to the commercial banks or the dealers in the currency, that we can't clearly see our way forward because we are not sure whether the central bank is going to continue with this policy. And I can confidently tell you, this decision or this announcement sends right signal and gives a very positive outlook that we know will bring some form of certainty and then also stabilize the currency and trigger down to the pump prices, whereby the key, once the international price have remained relatively stable and the cedi is also stable, you know exactly how you can do your price build up in order to arrive at the pump price. So
I was coming to that, Dr. Ofori, about the sustainability and, of course, the sustenance of the program. Have you gotten any indication from the Bank of Ghana about continuing with it, or are they proposing other alternatives?
There are other alternatives that we are looking forward to do. And obviously, we also appreciate the constraint that the central bank finds itself in. It's difficult pushing someone to give what he does not necessarily have, and that the little that they are able to do to support and then also to help regulate the overall inflation in the country is something that we can only commend them. But like you said, there are all indicators, and when you hit such crisis moment, that is where we all put on our thinking caps to come up with creative and innovative ways to fashion out the ways. And I think between the various parties and the various stakeholders involved, I think we've got the required brains and the capacity or the expertise to fashion out something that will be workable.
Finally, before you go, what do you make of proposals for the Bank of Ghana to halt this whole dollar support program to the BDCs? What will be the impact? Rather unfortunate, I'm told his line has frozen, and we shall connect back to him to speak to the issue we are delving into. And of course, it has to do with the fact that the Bank of Ghana is going ahead to support BDCs with more dollar to basically to help stabilize the cedi. As and when we do get a Dr. Kweku Ofori, we shall bring him on to speak to the issue. But let's move on to some other stories. And energy strategist and president of Eureka, an emerging energy consultancy firm, Dr. Yusuf Suleimana, is urging government to implement a financial backup to address shortage of liquefied petroleum gas and ensure constant electricity supply. Now, the West African gas pipeline, the bank claims that it is facing technical challenges which resulted in power outages in parts of the country. Now, Gridco had earlier blamed the power outages to a shortage of gas supply from the Atuabo gas processing plant and the West African gas pipeline. Here is Dr. Yusuf Suleimana speaking on the marketplace.
If we have shortfall from Ghana gas, we can get from Nigeria. That pipeline is bi-directional. So it depends on maybe we have the financial ability to be able to get any shortfall within gas supply. But I always believe that we have to be self-reliant. Ghana gas, we have to champion Ghana gas to ensure that we don't even depend on, West African gas pipeline on any day. But until that, we need to have maybe a financial backup available, so that when there's any shortfall in gas supply coming from Atuabo, then we should be able to source something externally from, probably from Nigeria. And that boils down to financial, our financial capability.
All right, so I'm told Dr. Fori is back to conclude that point for me. Dr. Fori, grateful you could join us back. Now, I asked whether the proposals for the Bank of Ghana to halt this whole dollar support program to the BDCs would have any impact to your operations, will it?
I wouldn't say it will necessarily hurt our operations, because when push comes to shove, we need to find ways of survival, because we've already committed some amount of investment into our trading, and we have agreements that we need to find ways of fulfilling those contractual agreements that we have with our partners. But what it becomes of that is that definitely we'll go out there to demand, and then when we are pushing for these demands, this is where the most likely it creates that panic that people start to buy, and people who necessarily have the dollars will also think that it's more or less a cocoa season for them to charge those outrageous prices. That when such situations happen, the BDCs don't have what it takes to control the prices. In that case, when I come to the market and they are quoting a certain amount as an exchange rate, let's say 12 or whatever rate they give you, you just put that into your spreadsheet to also arrive at the prices at the pump. That invariably will be self-defeating to the central bank quest to control inflation, because we all know the impact of petroleum products on the inflation, the overall inflation in the country. And I think if there are other initiatives to really help control inflation, I think fuel prices is a key component in the transport phase, which we all know. With that, we can have some element of control with that. Critically, the exchange rate is key, and I think the central bank knows this. And the reason why they will continue to do is that they've contextualized our issue, which may be the IMF and other consultants or advisors may be alienated from. But this decision clearly shows that those in charge are well abreast of the situation that we face as a country and the impact of such decisions without proper planning and without proper scaling down. Whatever it is, there is a central bank decision, and we respect that, and we appreciate the support that they've given us, because if it had not been their initiative with that of the support from the Ministry of Energy, this could have created a different scenario and a different program for the country. But I think, like I stated earlier on, as we surge on, try to have either innovative and creative ways to address this particular situation, we'll pledge our support to the central bank for them to be able to also do what is the best for the country as a whole, without necessarily seeking to be that selfish in pushing for our personal or private gains alone. But we'll just want to use this medium to commend them, and then also to demonstrate our willingness to collaborate and ensure that we all create the right environment for our members to conduct business, and for the central bank to also achieve its monetary policy targets and how they intend to manage the overall inflation in the country.
Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, Dr. Kofi, we are indeed grateful for your time here on Business Life. We've got to move on to some other stories, and the Dean of the UPSA Law School, Professor Ernest Kofi Abuchi, is making a strong case for some of the stability agreement with extractive sector firms to be reviewed. Now, the constitutional and corporate lawyer maintains that the manner in which some of these deals were structured still gives government the room to renegotiate the agreements. Professor Abuchi, however, maintains that government should try to bring on board all companies concerned.
And many people have argued that the mineral resources of Ghana haven't appeared to have benefited Ghana in terms of the overall exploitation across the spectrum of decades in that time space. So generally there's an understanding that, you know, Obuasi is a good town or a good city. Obuasi and Johannesburg were essentially founded around the same time period, you know, in the early 19th century. And we all know what has become of Johannesburg. We see what has become of Obuasi. So people can make these comparisons and they are difficult to refute. There's that general understanding. However, it is not a question of what should as opposed to a question of what can, legally speaking. These contracts are contracts. They are locked in an agreement which are frozen. And particularly for the stabilization clauses, even if other portions can be amended, the stabilization clauses are often frozen, not subject to amendments. If they can be amended, and I haven't reviewed them I haven't reviewed the concessions, but if they can be amended, of course, there's a case for they should be amended, because people can make a general claim that for some of those industries, there's been no clear or discernible benefits for local catchment people. But the question is whether the law allows within the framework of their structuring. And I think obviously not. And so the best option that you may have could be a negotiated case. A negotiated case of probably trying to bring, you know, those companies back to the table and see if they would happily open up and allow some redesign of things. Look, Botswana just did it. Botswana just succeeded in getting De Beers to open up and basically give them greater concessions or greater benefits under the arrangements that they have with the Botswana government. So there is a case in which companies sometimes voluntarily open up, not because they are legally bound, but they do open up because they think probably is the best thing to do within the context of an ongoing relationship.
This is still Business Life. More after this break. Hello, welcome back. The head of banking supervision at the Bank of Ghana, BDC, has warned savings and loans companies to take a critical look at rising costs of interest rates and non-performing loans in their books. He says the level of non-performing loans is becoming a huge challenge for savings and loans companies. Speaking recently at the launch of the 20th anniversary of Bayport Savings and Loans in Accra, Mr. GC assured that the central bank is addressing the issue.
I've observed some marginal increases in the NPL stock of Bayport. And Bayport could manage this to improve the asset quality of the institution. This will also enhance the profitability of the institution. So this is one area that Bayport would have to look at. Then also, Mr. Chairman, Bayport would have to diversify its funding sources to reduce the leverage and also, one, cut down interest costs. Otherwise, financial risk could crystallize. So these are the areas that we thought Bayport should be looking at to improve, to make more profits for the shareholders, to improve customer confidence, increase profitability, so that they can learn more to grow the economy. So look at these areas for us.
And the Executive Secretary of the Ghana Association of Savings and Loans Companies, Abuchi, has welcomed the suggestion of the Bank of Ghana for savings and loans to diversify their source of funding. According to him, companies need to search for funding in other areas instead of focusing on fixed deposits. He spoke on the marketplace.
There are a number of reasons why you will have a higher interest rate. The national economy is one. If you diversify, there are a number of institutions who have gotten investors from outside the country. They'll be giving you an interest rate which is lower, but your hedging cost is so expensive, and so it wouldn't. But of course, who looks at other alternatives instead of focusing on fixed deposit, and their services are also giving confidence to the public, then the public will bring them the current accounts, the savings accounts, and these SUSU accounts that come with a lower interest. So diversification is a key thing, but it goes beyond diversification, which we are currently having this conversation.
Moving on to some other stories, Adansi Travel has launched the Adansi Health Tourism to provide solutions needed to close the health gap in the country and beyond. According to Chief Executive Officer Gideon Asari, the move is necessary to support Ghana's health sector. Speaking to Joy Business at the launch, he admonished Ghanaians to take keen interest in promoting tourism across all sectors.
The Adansi Health Tourism will facilitate the inbound and outbound travel of people seeking health solutions to Ghana and abroad. Chief Executive Officer of Adansi Travel, Gideon Asari, called for more patronage for local healthcare system.
Today we launched the Adansi Health Tourism to help bridge the gap in the healthcare sector. And we have realized that when it comes to healthcare, there is so much gap. There are people in other parts of Ghana here, in some part of Ghana, who find it difficult to access healthcare within the country. So we are not launching this just to take people out of the country, but also to expose the very good doctors, very good hospitals, and the facilities we have to Ghanaians and to those living abroad who like to come. Of course, there are times that situation make it possible or demand that people in Ghana have to move out of the country to seek medical care because there's some lack of facility here, and Adansi Health Tourism is here to help.
On this part, Chief Executive Officer for the Kulebu Teaching Hospital, Dr. Opoku Warampoma, said it is time to explore the infinite possibilities of health tourism compared to other natural resources bestowed on the country.
And globally, depending on where you look, this is around $120 billion industry, and it's expected to grow at a rate of about 11%.
Thanks so much for being part of the bulletin. I am Pius Kojo Baka. You can get business stories when you log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Do enjoy the rest of our programs. Bye.